The doorbell rang at exactly 7. The sound sharp and polite, like it knew better than to linger. Daniel Harper stood frozen in the narrow hallway of his small suburban home, one hand resting on the door handle, the other pressed flat against his chest as if to steady his breathing. The house smelled faintly of tomato sauce and fresh laundry, evidence of the rushed dinner and last-minute cleaning that had filled his evening. Upstairs, the soft hum of the baby monitor confirmed that both kids were asleep, or at least pretending well enough to pass. He had checked on them 3 times already, maybe 4. Being a single dad had taught him that peace was fragile, borrowed and always conditional. Daniel took a breath and opened the door. She stood there holding a small clutch purse, her dark hair pulled back in a simple style that looked effortless but probably wasn't. She wore a soft gray coat, buttoned neatly, and her eyes, steady, calm, searching, met his instantly. For a fraction of a second, Daniel forgot how to speak. He had seen her pictures, of course. He had stared at them longer than he cared to admit while messaging back and forth late at night, when the kids were asleep and loneliness crept in like fog. But seeing her in person felt different, real, weighty. "Hi," she said gently. "Daniel?" Hi, yes, I'm Daniel." He stepped aside, gesturing her in, suddenly aware of how small the hallway felt, how loud the silence was. "You must be Emma." She smiled, a quick curve of her lips that carried warmth but also nerves. "I am." She crossed the threshold, and as she did, she leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a whisper that was meant to be private. Careful, almost apologetic. "My kids are in the car." Daniel froze. The words didn't just land. They echoed. His mind scrambled, reaching for context that wasn't there. Kids, plural, in the car. He felt the floor tilt, not dramatically, but just enough to unsettle him. This wasn't what he'd expected. Not because he was against it, he had kids himself, but because of everything those words implied. Surprise, responsibility, complication, reality. "Oh," he said intelligently. Emma watched his face, reading every flicker of expression with the precision of someone used to gauging reactions before they turned dangerous or dismissive. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I know that's not exactly first date material. I couldn't leave them alone and the sitter canceled last minute. I almost didn't come." Daniel's heart thudded. He thought of his own kids upstairs, of the years he'd spent navigating canceled plans, judgmental looks, and the unspoken assumption that single parents came with too much baggage. He stepped back fully now, opening the door wider. "You should bring them in," he said, surprising himself with how steady his voice sounded. "It's cold out." Relief flashed across her face, raw and unmistakable. "Are you sure?" He nodded. Yeah. I have kids too." Her shoulders relaxed just a little. "I know. That's why I said yes to the date in the first place." She turned back toward the driveway and Daniel followed, the night air cool against his face. A modest sedan sat parked under the streetlight. When Emma opened the back door, 2 small figures stirred. One boy, maybe 6 or 7, with messy hair and sleepy eyes, blinked up at them. Beside him, a younger girl clutched a worn stuffed rabbit, her thumb hovering near her mouth. "Hey, my loves," Emma said softly. "We're just going inside for a bit, okay?" The boy looked at Daniel, curiosity outweighing fatigue. "Is this your house?" Daniel crouched slightly, meeting his gaze. "It is. I've got kids too. They're asleep upstairs." That seemed to satisfy him. The girl, however, didn't speak. She just studied Daniel with wide, thoughtful eyes, as if filing him away for later consideration. They all went inside, shoes lined up neatly by the door. The house felt instantly different, fuller, louder even in silence. Emma helped her kids settle on the couch with blankets, whispering reassurances while Daniel hovered awkwardly, unsure whether to offer snacks or space. Eventually, he poured juice, cut up apples, and put on a low-volume cartoon, the glow of the screen casting soft colors across the room. Only when the kids were distracted did Emma finally exhale. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Really?" Daniel shrugged, though his chest felt tight. "I get it. More than you know." They sat at opposite ends of the couch, not touching, both hyper-aware of the children between them, of the strange intimacy of the moment. This wasn't dinner and polite conversation. This was life unfiltered. "I should probably explain," Emma said after a moment. "About everything." Daniel nodded. "I'd like that." She told him then in a low voice, about her divorce, about how quickly things had unraveled once the truth came out, about raising 2 kids on her own, about working double shifts, about the constant guilt of never feeling like she was enough. Daniel listened, really listened, the way he wished someone had listened to him when his own marriage ended after illness and loss had hollowed it out. When it was his turn, he spoke of grief, of late nights holding crying children who asked for their mother, of learning how to braid hair badly and pack lunches creatively. They shared stories in fragments, careful not to overwhelm the moment, but enough to recognize something familiar in each other. By the time the kids were dozing again, curled into blankets, the clock had crept past 9. "This is not how I imagined tonight," Emma said with a small laugh. Daniel smiled. "Me neither, but I don't hate it." She met his eyes then, really met them, and for the first time that evening, the awkwardness softened into something gentler, more hopeful. Outside, the night was quiet. Inside, something had begun. The weeks that followed unfolded slowly, like a careful negotiation between hope and fear. Daniel and Emma didn't rush anything. They couldn't. Life didn't allow for it. Their schedules were dictated by school drop-offs, pediatric appointments, late-night fevers, and the unpredictable, emotional weather of children who had already learned that adults sometimes left. Their second date was a walk in the park on a Sunday afternoon, kids in tow. Daniel's son Lucas was hesitant at first, staying close while his daughter, Mia, warmed quickly, drawn to Emma's calm presence. Emma's children, Noah and Lily, followed Daniel around with cautious curiosity, asking questions about his dog, his job, his favorite color. There was no pretense. Just shared snacks, scraped knees, and the quiet miracle of watching kids be kids together. Still, Daniel struggled with doubt. Late at night, when the house was quiet, he wondered if this was too much, too complicated. He worried about attachment, about what would happen if things didn't work out. He had promised himself he would never put his kids through another loss. Emma had her own fears. She worried about being judged, about leaning too heavily on someone else. Independence had become her armor. Trust didn't come easily anymore. One evening, after the kids were asleep in their respective homes, they sat on Daniel's porch, mugs of tea warming their hands. "I'm scared," Emma admitted, staring out at the street. Daniel nodded. "Me too." They didn't rush to reassure each other. They let the honesty sit between them. "But," Daniel said finally, "I think being scared means it matters." Emma smiled at that. "I think you're right." Months passed. Seasons changed. The kids grew more comfortable, their laughter filling both houses. There were setbacks, arguments, misunderstandings, moments when old wounds resurfaced, but there was also patience, apologies, and a growing sense of teamwork. One night, long after the kids were asleep, Emma rested her head on Daniel's shoulder. "I'm glad I whispered that night," she said. "So am I," he replied. Outside, the world went on, messy and unpredictable. Inside, they built something steady, not perfect but real. A family, not formed by convenience or fantasy, but by choice, effort, and the courage to open the door even when the future whispered complications instead of promises. And that, Daniel realized, was exactly what love looked like now.